the Empire's ultimate weapon that never existed. In our timeline, the Death Star destroyed Alderaan and nearly ended the rebellion. But what if the Empire never got the chance to build it? What if instead of hiding on Dagobah, Yoda had done something that changed everything? And I mean everything about the Star Wars saga. Today we explore a timeline where one decision creates a completely different galaxy, where there is no Rebel Alliance, where Princess Leia never gets captured, where Luke Skywalker never lives as a farm boy, and where the Empire falls not in 30 years, but in 7. Here's what actually changes everything. In our timeline, Yoda feels the deaths of thousands of Jedi through the Force and retreats to Dagobah in grief and exile. But what if instead, in those crucial hours after Order 66, Yoda makes a different choice? What if he decides that grief is a luxury the galaxy cannot afford? Within hours of the Purge, Yoda begins the most ambitious Force search in Jedi history. Using techniques forbidden by the old Jedi Council as too aggressive and invasive, he systematically scans entire star systems looking for surviving Force signatures. Not to mourn them, but to find them. Not to comfort them, but to recruit them for something the galaxy has never seen before. His first discovery changes his entire strategy. There aren't just a handful of survivors scattered across the Outer Rim. There are hundreds, Padawans who escaped their master's deaths by trusting their instincts over their training, knights who sensed the betrayal moments before their clones turned and managed to fight their way to freedom, temple guards who held the sacred halls until the last possible moment, then disappeared into Coruscant's underworld. Younglings who were rescued by sympathetic non-Jedi during the chaos, senators' aides, clone medics who couldn't bring themselves to harm children, even some civilian workers who saw what was happening and chose compassion over compliance. Even more surprising, there are clone commanders who refused to execute Order 66, choosing loyalty to their Jedi generals over blind obedience to orders that felt fundamentally wrong. He also discovers Force-sensitive allies like Ahsoka Tano, who, though no longer technically a Jedi, possesses the skills and connections needed to help coordinate this new resistance. But here's what makes Yoda's approach revolutionary. He doesn't try to comfort these survivors or help them find peace with their trauma. Instead, he tells them something that shocks every traditional Jedi principle they've ever learned. Their pain is not something to overcome, it's something to harness. The Ancient Master has realized that the Jedi Order's greatest weakness was its insistence on emotional detachment. The survivors didn't fail because they felt too much. They survived because they felt everything. Their grief at watching their masters die became hyper-awareness that saved their lives in subsequent encounters. Their fear during the betrayal transformed into intuition that warned them of danger before it materialized. Their desperate love for the innocent civilians they tried to protect gave them strength to fight impossible odds and win. These emotions didn't make them weak or vulnerable to the dark side. They made them impossible to predict, manipulate, or defeat through conventional tactics. So Yoda begins training them not as replacement Jedi, but as something entirely new. They learn traditional Force techniques, yes, but they also learn guerrilla warfare, intelligence gathering, and psychological operations. They study Imperial military doctrine to understand their enemies' weaknesses. They practice blending into civilian populations, using the Force to enhance ordinary skills, rather than relying on obvious displays of power. Most importantly, they learn to use their emotional connections as tactical advantages rather than spiritual weaknesses. A Padawan who lost his master doesn't spend years meditating to find inner peace. Instead, he channels that profound loss into perfect tactical awareness that keeps his new team alive. A knight who watched her clone battalion turn against her doesn't suppress the memory. She uses it to develop an almost supernatural ability to detect deception and betrayal before it happens. Within 18 months, Yoda has assembled something unprecedented. Nearly 200 Force users and their allies operating as a coordinated resistance network. But they don't call themselves Jedi. They call themselves the Living, because they represent everyone the Empire failed to kill. And unlike the contemplative Jedi of old, the Living have a very simple philosophy. The Empire must fall, and they will use whatever methods are necessary to make that happen. As their network grows through recruitment of disillusioned Imperial officers, sympathetic civilians, and even some reformed Inquisitors, their numbers begin to swell into the thousands. Their first major operations target the Empire's anti-Force user infrastructure with surgical precision, rather than direct confrontation. They focus on systematic sabotage and misdirection. False coordinates lead Imperial agents to empty worlds. Communication networks feed Inquisitors phantom intelligence, while real survivors escape undetected. Most importantly, they begin recruiting disillusioned Imperial officers who join believing they would maintain order, not commit genocide. Within 2 years, the Empire's entire force-hunting apparatus has been completely compromised. Yoda's network has grown in ways that would surprise anyone expecting a traditional Jedi response. He's not building an army of lightsaber-wielding warriors. He's not establishing hidden academies for force training. Instead, he's creating the galaxy's most sophisticated intelligence operation, staffed by Force users and their allies who've learned to use their abilities for espionage rather than combat. The beauty of Yoda's strategy lies in its subtlety and its understanding of Imperial psychology. The Empire's strength comes from its ability to project overwhelming force and maintain absolute control through fear. But the Living discover that this strength becomes a weakness when turned inward. Their primary focus becomes the systematic destruction of the Inquisitorius, Palpatine's specialized organization of fallen Jedi, tasked with hunting down survivors. The Inquisitors represent everything Yoda's philosophy opposes. These are former Jedi who have embraced anger and hatred, but without purpose beyond serving their own power and the Emperor's will. They've traded their principles for strength, becoming exactly what the old Jedi Order feared its members might become. But Yoda sees an opportunity where others see only threat. The Living begin infiltrating Imperial Inquisitor training facilities, not to destroy them with lightsabers blazing, but to sabotage the programs from within. They plant evidence that specific Inquisitors are planning to overthrow their superiors. They corrupt the psychological conditioning that keeps Inquisitors loyal, introducing subtle doubts about the Empire's methods and goals. Most devastatingly, they begin feeding the Inquisitors false information about survivor locations. Within 18 months, the Inquisitorius faces an unprecedented crisis. Inquisitors sent to capture Force-sensitive children arrive at coordinates that lead them into ambushes by the Living. Others receive intelligence about survivor hideouts that turn out to be traps designed to capture Inquisitors alive. But here's where Yoda's strategy becomes truly revolutionary. Instead of killing captured Inquisitors, the Living attempt to rehabilitate them. This process horrifies traditional Jedi sensibilities, but Yoda has realized something crucial about the nature of the dark side. The Inquisitors fell not because they were inherently evil, but because they were traumatized, isolated, and given no alternative to serving the Emperor or dying. The Living offer them a third option: redemption through service to something greater than personal power. Not all Inquisitors can be saved. Some have fallen too far into hatred and madness. But a surprising number, when shown genuine compassion and offered a chance to use their abilities to protect the innocent rather than hunt them, begin to remember why they became Jedi in the first place. By year 3, nearly a dozen former Inquisitors have joined the Living, bringing with them intimate knowledge of Imperial tactics and the locations of other Force-sensitive prisoners. The psychological impact on the remaining Inquisitors is devastating. They can no longer trust their orders, their colleagues, or even their own perceptions. Every mission might be a trap. Every piece of intelligence might be false. Every fellow Inquisitor might be a reformed enemy. The Grand Inquisitor himself becomes increasingly paranoid, spending more time investigating his own subordinates than hunting actual survivors. This internal collapse of the Inquisitorius creates a cascade effect throughout Imperial anti-Force user operations. Local governors who relied on Inquisitors to maintain order find themselves without their most effective enforcers. Purge trooper units trained to support Inquisitor missions are reassigned to guard duty as trust breaks down. Most importantly, the Empire's systematic approach to hunting Force users degrades into random, ineffective sweeps that accomplish nothing except terrorizing innocent civilians and driving more systems toward independence. With the Inquisitorius neutralized and their intelligence networks compromised, the Empire loses its primary weapon against Force users. But this creates an even larger strategic opening. The Empire's remaining military leadership, no longer confident in their ability to control Force-sensitive threats, begins looking desperately for alternative solutions. Some suggest increasing conventional military forces. Others propose new technologies. A few even recommend negotiating with the Resistance. But rather than coordinate these efforts, each Imperial faction begins pursuing their own secret projects, believing that whoever develops the most effective solution will gain the Emperor's favor and dominance over their rivals. With the Inquisitorius eliminated as an effective force, different Imperial factions now compete desperately to fill the power vacuum. The secret projects that began as responses to the Force user threat transform into something far more dangerous: weapons of internal Imperial warfare. 5 Imperial factions have each developed their own military solutions to replace the failed Inquisitor program. Some focus on overwhelming firepower, others on massive clone armies, and a few on advanced fighter designs. Each faction believes their approach is the key to Imperial security, and more importantly, each believes they have the Emperor's secret authorization, while the others are building unauthorized weapons. The Living's final masterstroke involves ensuring that detailed intelligence about each faction's projects reaches their rivals in the most inflammatory way possible. Each group receives evidence that the others are building unauthorized weapons specifically designed to challenge the Emperor's authority. The competing factions stop seeing each other as colleagues and begin viewing them as existential threats to Imperial stability. The result is catastrophic for Imperial governance. The Empire's entire military budget gets consumed by competing military projects and the conflicts between them. Star Destroyers meant for maintaining order get reassigned to attack rival Imperial facilities. Stormtrooper legions abandon populated worlds to seize control of each other's shipyards. Local systems stop receiving Imperial protection, and when systems stop seeing Imperial benefits, they stop paying Imperial taxes. There is no need for a traditional rebellion because there's no unified empire left to rebel against. Half the galaxy has simply declared independence and walked away. The remaining Imperial territory is consumed by civil war between competing factions, each convinced that the others are traitors attempting to overthrow Palpatine. The escalation happens faster than anyone anticipated. Each faction becomes convinced that the other's projects are actually preparations for coups against the Emperor himself. Imperial forces begin mobilizing not against external enemies, but against other Imperial installations. The final confrontation occurs when all 5 Imperial factions, each controlling significant portions of the Imperial fleet, converge in the largest space battle in galactic history. But this isn't rebels against the Empire. It's the Empire's most powerful forces systematically destroying each other in a desperate struggle for control over the post-Inquisitor Imperial hierarchy. In a single day, the Empire loses 80% of its remaining fleet strength, most of its production capabilities, and its entire senior military leadership. The few surviving ships limp away from the battle sites, their crews traumatized by having fought and killed their former colleagues. Emperor Palpatine, witnessing his carefully constructed system tear itself apart, finally understands the true genius of Yoda's strategy. The Jedi didn't defeat the Empire through superior firepower or moral righteousness. They defeated it by forcing it to reveal its fundamental nature, a system so completely corrupted by the pursuit of power that it would literally destroy itself, to maintain individual positions within that power structure. The Empire's collapse wasn't caused by external enemies. It was caused by the Empire being exactly what it always claimed to be, the ultimate expression of order through strength. With the Empire's collapse, something unprecedented happens. Emperor Palpatine, witnessing the systematic destruction of everything he built, makes one final, desperate attempt to salvage his vision. Using dark side rituals that drain the life force from entire star systems, he begins transforming himself into a being of pure dark energy, no longer bound by physical form or imperial infrastructure. But Yoda has anticipated even this. The moment Palpatine begins his transformation, every member of the living across the galaxy joins in a massive Force meditation. Thousands of Force users, connected through their shared pain and purpose, create a network of light side energy that encompasses the entire galaxy. The resulting Force storm doesn't destroy Palpatine. It shows him something far more devastating than death. In that moment of ultimate clarity, Palpatine sees the future Yoda has created, a galaxy where his vision of absolute order has been achieved, but through methods he never imagined. Perfect control maintained not through fear and oppression, but through invisible surveillance and gentle manipulation. The realization that his greatest enemy has succeeded where he failed, creating true galactic order, becomes the final blow that shatters his connection to the dark side forever. By the time the smoke clears and the last Imperial holdouts simply abandon their posts, the galaxy that emerges looks nothing like the New Republic we know from the original timeline. There are no rebel heroes to celebrate, no dramatic throne room confrontations to mythologize, no redemption arcs to inspire future generations. Instead, there's something that many find far more unsettling than the Empire ever was. The new galactic order isn't built around the idea of defeating evil through heroic action. It's built around the principle that power itself is inherently corrupting, and that any system allowing power to concentrate in few hands will inevitably destroy itself. But this isn't the chaotic anarchy that many feared would follow Imperial collapse. Instead, it's something far more sophisticated and, in many ways, more controlling than anything Palpatine ever imagined. Thousands of Force users, trained not for lightsaber combat but for intelligence gathering and psychological analysis, work throughout the galaxy as an invisible network. They don't rule openly like the old Jedi Council, or command through fear like the Sith. Instead, they operate as merchants, mechanics, teachers, and farmers. Ordinary citizens who happen to possess extraordinary abilities to sense when power structures begin shifting toward tyranny. This new order operates through what Yoda calls balance through vigilance. Every government, every corporation, every military organization operates under the constant, invisible oversight of Force-sensitive agents who intervene the moment any entity begins accumulating too much power. A senator who starts building a private army finds his funding mysteriously redirected. A corporate executive who begins enslaving workers discovers that her communications have been leaked to competitors. A warlord attempting to conquer neighboring systems finds his supply lines inexplicably failing. It's not tyranny in the traditional sense, because no single authority makes these decisions. The interventions are coordinated through the Force itself, with agents across the galaxy sensing when action is needed and responding collectively. But it's also not freedom in any sense that previous generations would recognize. Every major decision, every significant accumulation of resources, every attempt to build lasting power structures is subject to invisible scrutiny and potential interference. For ordinary citizens, life has never been better. Without the Empire's oppressive taxes and military recruitment, local communities flourish. Trade flows freely between systems without imperial bureaucracy. Technological innovation accelerates without imperial restrictions on research. Crime rates plummet because criminals find themselves inexplicably caught, or their plans mysteriously foiled. Most people never realize they're living under any kind of supervision at all, but the transition isn't without challenges. Some worlds that depended heavily on imperial infrastructure struggle to maintain their technology and defense systems. Others face power vacuums as local leaders attempt to fill the void left by departed imperial governors. The living work constantly to prevent these situations from destabilizing into the kind of conflicts that might require a return to centralized authority. Yoda watches this transformation with mixed emotions. His strategy has succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. The galaxy is more peaceful and prosperous than it has been in generations. But he also recognizes that what he's created is something unprecedented in galactic history. A shadow government of Force users who maintain order through constant surveillance and intervention. The question that haunts him is whether this represents true balance in the Force or simply a more sophisticated form of control. But this peaceful galaxy holds a darker secret, one that even the surviving Force users don't fully understand. Because something unexpected has happened to Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa. Growing up surrounded by hundreds of Force users has accelerated their development in ways that even Yoda didn't anticipate. These children aren't just strong in the Force, they're becoming something entirely new. And every faction in the post-Imperial galaxy wants to control them. The twins represent the ultimate prize in a galaxy that's learned to fear concentrated power. They're the children of the Chosen One, trained from birth by the greatest Force users in history, and they're developing abilities that surpass anything seen before. More importantly, they're completely innocent of the political games that adults play. But Yoda has been preparing for this moment since the day the Empire fell. Because the real test of his new order isn't whether it can destroy tyranny, it's whether it can resist becoming tyrannical itself when faced with the ultimate temptation of power. The answer to why Yoda really orchestrated the Empire's self-destruction and what he's been preparing the Skywalker family for will make you question everything you thought you knew about the light side of the Force. If you've enjoyed this journey through an alternate Star Wars timeline, there are more untold stories waiting to be discovered. Join our growing community of Star Wars enthusiasts who believe in exploring these what-if moments that could have changed the galaxy far, far away. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and activate notifications to catch our next alternative Star Wars story. Each tale offers a new perspective on the characters we love and the choices that define them. Remember to share your thoughts in the comments below. What other pivotal moments in the Star Wars saga would you like to see explored differently? Your ideas might inspire our next adventure. May the Force be with you, always.